Patreon Q&A number 43. I want to thank all 70 of my amazing patrons. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to support me. Like I always say, through the good and the bad, you guys are there keeping me going and giving me that little extra boost that I need. So thank you so much. And to everyone else listening, there's going to be some spoilers in these questions and answers, so tread carefully after this point. Joshua M asks, hey, showing in first order of business today is what exactly is Drive Knight and can it be trusted? I know his words to Genos last season were for him to make Metal Knight seem villainous, but what if Drive Knight is actually the sinister one here, trying to push a wedge between Genos and Metal Knight for some unknown agenda? Well, personally, I think that Drive Knight is likely an AI that has gained sentience, or, you know what I mean, like an AI that has become self-aware. Probably that was created by Metal Knight. So either Metal Knight was working on some kind of AI, you know, similar to how Tony Stark was in the second Avengers movie, Ultron. And then something like that happened. Like, it just got out of control, and then it just left the control of Metal Knight, and then maybe found its own way to becoming Drive Knight, or something else like that. But it also begs the question of, like, what is the brain robot? Why does the brain robot have a brain in it, which means that that brain came from a person? There's so many questions and possibilities here, but I do think that Drive Knight is ultimately an AI. I don't think he's like a cyborg the way that Genos is. Yes, he does have an emo haircut, but I think that's just kind of for aesthetic. But more or less, Drive Knight was invented probably unknowingly by Metal Knight. But then also there's like that one mysterious panel in the webcomic when we see what Metal Knight is looking at, and it looks like in the one of the monitors to his left, he could see the brain robot. Maybe that means he has tabs on the organization. Like, it's so many possibilities, and none of this has really been touched on yet. But more or less, Drive Knight, because he's coming from Metal Knight, allegedly, he knows the true intentions of Metal Knight. And there's been, you know, it's been hinted at every now and then that Metal Knight has, like, this huge ulterior motive that it seems like it has, like, dark intentions behind it. Because, like, he said in a bonus chapter before that, like, I'll allow the Hero Association to keep going for now, or I'll allow them to keep barking orders or something like that for now. And then we see like he has complete control over the Hero Association more or less right now because he built the whole entire complex that they have. He also had like the defense system that we see in the Psychic Sisters arc, if that's what you want to call it. And then after that, like he's completely pissed off right now. He's also not completely heroic because he just wanted to straight up carpet bomb the Monster Association despite Legandaryus being in there. He was just going to kill Legandaryus just so he could take out the Monster Association. But we saw that Drive Knight, if he is G5, definitely isn't as evil or sociopathic as Metal Knight is, because he saved Narinki's squad. Didn't kill them, stopped them from being killed, in fact, and then he also saved Terrio. So I think Metal Knight is actually a good guy, but maybe not like an entirely good guy. Like, he has his own motives, of course, for the organization, but I think deep down he sees justice in a better light than what Metal Knight ultimately does. I think they both feel justified in their motives. They don't see themselves as evil, but they think that they're doing the right thing, but they could come across as being evil, you know, in their own ways. My second question is, KFC or Popeyes? I'm really in the mood for some fried chicken. Honestly, I like both, and I think they both have their strengths and weaknesses. Popeyes, I think, has like really good tenders, and I'm more of like a tenders, nugget, breast meat type of dude. And it seems like Popeyes has more of their food made to order. You know, like when you order it, they make it and fresh for you, and then they give it to you that way. As where KFC, it seems like most of their stuff has kind of just been sitting there for a while. And I know they both have that dynamic where they just have the chicken sitting in the heat baskets. But I don't know, it just seems more so like KFC is more comfortable with having their stuff sit out for a long time. But I do like the variety of KFC that Popeyes doesn't have. Like, KFC has like all kind of different sauces and variations of the tenders and the sandwiches that you can get that Popeyes doesn't. Like the Nashville one and the gold one and whatever all the other stuff does. So both are nice. You know, you got to be in the mood for either one. I wouldn't really say one is better than the other, but I do like Popeyes biscuits more but I like KFC's fries more. 4B asks, sorry to hear about your recent Patreon issue. You have my support. Hey, thanks, bro. I really appreciate that. It's not really that big of a deal. I mean, like I said, it's been happening since I started the Patreon. It's just more so annoying than anything. It's like, do you really need to spit in my face like that? Do you have any dignity? Whatever, I get it. People suck sometimes. It's whatever. It's just the nature of the world. Do you think Tatsumaki will get a buff like everyone else in the manga so far? And if so, what kind of new power would you guess? See, this is a good question because it's like, should she get a power-up? Sure. All of the other characters seem to be getting a power-up, so why not? But also, she's already insanely powerful, so giving her a buff is just, like, redundant, you know? But if it is going to be a buff, I assume that it might be that Force Lightning stuff that we saw Girogiro do, because that wasn't in the webcomic originally. And Tatsumaki, the way that she talks about it, makes it seem like maybe she knows it, since she knows that this technique can be learned, and only espers could do it. So maybe she's going to do some crazy lightning stuff like that, or maybe a more concentrated version of it, where it's like a beam almost, like an esper beam, you know, like Psybeam from Pokemon. That would be super cool. But aside from that, I just think if she does get a buff and it's not like an added ability, it's just going to amplify her strength even more. Like we see her pull the Monster Association out of the ground. So maybe instead of just doing that, maybe she lifts the entire city, which Murata says that she can do. So maybe that was him hinting at what is going to happen. You know, maybe like that just causes a whole huge catastrophe in a whole new way other than just pulling the base out of the ground. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But good question. Joseph K asks, hi, Shonen Chapter 112 was so awesome and really loving the videos you're coming out with. Great job. Hey, thanks, Joe. I really appreciate that. And sorry about last 2 weeks ago, my friend. As you alluded to in your chapter review, I don't think Girogiro knew/knows about My Mask's secret when he was assigning battles. I suspect that Girogiro might have picked Fura Ugly for a My Mask because she knows he gets extremely agitated around things he finds disgusting. Case in point, Super S, where he ripped through any obstacle to kill her without much thought as to the risks. When you have an overwhelming advantage in strength and speed, it's great, but up against an executive, I suspect she was counting on him, leaving himself exposed. The actual result of the battle was just very fortunate coincidence for the Monster Association. Yeah, that could be true. That's a good point that you bring up, but I don't think that Super S was planned for a My Mask to go against, because remember the disciples ran into her first, and then the My Mask came out of nowhere. Unless she did set it up ultimately, which I'm not putting it past her. She is a mastermind, and she does have the Esper abilities where she can like pinpoint people in the Monster Association. So it's very likely that she set that up, but still, like, you gotta know that there's no freaking way Super S could take down a My Mask. But then we have seen that she has underestimated the powers and the strength of the S class before, or in this case, the A class. But yeah, I mean, it totally does make sense. And yeah, with the Fura Ugly matchup, I could see that too. And I can also just see her banking on Fura Ugly just being straight up more powerful than a My Mask, just because he's an insane dragon level monster, and it's kind of hard to imagine that a My Mask would be stronger and faster than somebody like Fura Ugly. So yeah, I can see that her banking on him being agitated, and it just ultimately comes down to a coincidence working out in Monster Association's favor. Speaking of Girogiro's matchmaking skills, if you had to guess what the worst matchup she could have picked, I know all of the S-Class and executives are getting buffs, so no one would have an instant win, but are there any battles you think could be in the favor of the heroes if Girogiro is having a really off day when she decided who would fight who? So I think Pig-God versus the Evil Natural Water, because we saw at the end of the arc, he straight up eats the miniature heart version of him. And I honestly believe that Pig-God, if forced to it, one-on-one battle in a confined area, I think he could probably consume all of the Evil Natural Water and then just digest him. I mean, it would be super high difficulty for him, and it's debatable if he could survive a full Evil Natural Water inside of him shooting the beams out, if he could or not, but I think he could get the job done. But aside from that, I think, Bang against Fura Ugly or Gums, we saw how that happened. So if Girogiro randomly set up that fight, it would definitely go down the same way, just abandonment one shot, you know, so it would have to come down to those ultimately, in my opinion. Kingisgod, yo, sup, Shonen? I remember that you said you liked the Evangelion series. I'm not sure if you ever watched Gundam before, but if you did, who would win in a huge mech-on-mech battle, Evangelion versus Gundam? So I do like Evangelion, but for different reasons rather than just as a whole series. So I think the art and the style, the aesthetic is amazing. It is truly remarkable. I think it's ahead of its time, and it's timeless. Like, it was made in the 90s, but I don't think it's ever going to be outdated. It's always going to be relevant and just so significant, even from a cultural aspect. That's how much I love the design. The fight scenes are amazing, too. They're so visceral and brutal and graphic, and they're, like, oddly realistic in a sense. You know, more so than just, like, the standard battle anime fights that we see, where they have, like, such a sensationalistic aspect to them that we kind of disconnect from it. But in Evangelion, the fights are, like, you know, like, oddly realistic. You can kind of relate to them. The way that, like, the movements of the Evas and the angels, and the way that the flesh rips and the blood comes out, the way that they act and stuff, it's very cool and realistic the way that Hideaki Anno, I think that's his name, was able to do it. However, that's all I really like about Evangelion. I don't like the characters. I don't like the way that they're written. I don't like the way the story is written. I think the overall story, the idea of it, is pretty cool. I don't like how it's executed. I don't like how it plays out and where it ultimately goes. But aside from that, everything else is just stellar. As for Evangelions, or the Evas versus the Gundams, it really depends on what Gundams you're talking about. So if we're just talking about Gundam in general, we'll go back to, like, the original Gundam from the 1970s. I assume that they're faster than the Evas, but that's pretty much it. The Evas are bigger than them. I assume that they're stronger than them, and I don't think the Gundam's weapons would be able to penetrate the AT fields that they have, and even if they did, I don't think their weapons would work on the Evas. Not sure about the beam cannons, but still, I think this is probably going to be a fight for the Evas to win. If we're just going against the standard Gundams, I'm not really sure about the other crazy, super powerful other iterations of the Gundams, because there's like hundreds of them, but just standard Eva versus Gundam, I think the Eva probably wins most of the time. Legandaryus says, hey Shonen, saw your announcement and also knew of this being possible. One, I got low on cash a few times myself. Hey, there's no issues with you, Legandaryus, and all the other people who pledge to the Patreon, but then some months they can't because of cash and whatnot. I totally understand that. I'm more so talking about the people who are deliberately trying to scam me, and yes, there are few and far between the people who are low on cash and the deliberate scammers out there, which I encounter every single month, but it's all good. No issues with you, my friend. My main question is more of a thought experiment, just thinking since the more recent webcomic arc seems to have Saitama meeting more high-ranking heroes, was think of what it would be for Child Emperor since he thinks Saitama is really weak from the Okami mask. I could see it being he is talking to Metal Knight, and Metal Knight warns Child Emperor of Saitama being the most dangerous threat to the association if he joined the Neo Heroes, since Metal Knight and Child Emperor like to have plans for threats ahead of time. They would study Saitama or follow him like Bang did in his own chapter. Would also like to hear your thoughts a little more on the Neo Heroes and how strong the members are, and would think the people that we have seen before would be more powerful than they were before. So I think if Child Emperor was briefed specifically from Metal Knight on Saitama, he would believe him. But other than that, I don't think Child Emperor would really care about Saitama unless he saw some outrageous feat of power, but we've seen that that's not really typical when Saitama is being introduced to new characters and whatnot. I mean, like, we saw that when he met all of the S-Class in the first season, they all thought he was a joke and whatnot, except Bang, of course, because he already knew. But, like, Child Emperor would have to hear it from Metal Knight because he's the one that he ultimately respects the most, aside from Blast. You know, at least the hints that we got from Child Emperor recently in the webcomic. So I think he would be cautious, but I think Metal Knight probably knows that Saitama isn't going to join the Neo Heroes, so it more or less would be Metal Knight trying to help Child Emperor come up with a strategy against someone like Saitama, rather than trying to make him an ally. Because I think if, at this point in the webcomic, Metal Knight is definitely going to try to help the Neo Heroes, or at least help Child Emperor, therefore he is helping the Neo Heroes. I think Metal Knight's kind of just going to do his own thing. Also, I think it would kind of defeat the purpose of the huge looming force that Metal Knight represents if he were to join the Neo Heroes, because we're supposed to assume that it's going to be like the Neo Heroes with their own force against the Hero Association, rather than the Neo Heroes with Metal Knight. Because I assume that Metal Knight is going to be like his own, gigantic army in itself. He doesn't really need the Neo Heroes, if anything. So, as for the Bang in his own chapter, I think that's an OVA. I'm pretty sure that was just an OVA when Bang was like following Saitama around and observing him. And I'm really unsure of the canon of the OVAs, because I'm not sure if they're written by one. As far as I know, season 1 was written by Hidehiko Suzuki, I think was his name. So I'm going to assume that Suzuki also wrote the OVAs, which I'm not sure gives canon to the OVAs. But regardless, I think the Neo Heroes, the members that we have seen so far, aside from the S-Class crossovers, Raiden and Excel. So Raiden seems to be legitimately S-Class level. I mean, he's like the Yokozuna of the One Punch Man world, so I assume that he has like super strength and he's pretty skilled as well. So at the minimum, I'm assuming that he's on Puri Puri Prisoners level. But Excel, he's more of a question mark. So as you were saying, like, are they more powerful than they were before? Meaning, are they getting retconned to become stronger? It's possible that Excel is, because originally I had my doubts about Excel because it seemed like he was a part of the Hunters, the 80 or 90, I forget how many they have. They all went together to go against a demon, and they lost like 5 members, and it's implied that Excel was a part of them. So like I've always said, like, if Excel can't take down a demon by himself, then he is not on the S-Class level. But then we could be getting into retcons here, because the last time one touched on Excel was 2 years before the webcomic picked up this year. So Nathan W. asks, not a crossover battle, but technically a crossover. If Saitama were to cross over into another manga/anime universe, which do you think would be the most fun, and which character do you see irritating him the most? So I would love it if Saitama went to the My Hero world. I think that would be so cool, because you know how cynical and misanthropic, or mildly misanthropic, that Saitama is. It would be so cool if he was just put into this bubbly little world. I mean, of course, there are ultra dark elements to My Hero, don't get it twisted. But for the most part, on the surface, it's like real happy, bubbly, everyone's having a good time, more or less, even though there's constant chaos in the world, too. But the main cast, more or less, like the 1A class. Even though he wouldn't really be associated with them too much because they're out of his age group. But even if he was with, like, the other pro heroes, it would be pretty funny trying to see him fit into this world, and I'm sure he would have a very similar dynamic that he would in the One Punch Man world. But I think the character that he be the most irritated with is All Might, because I think All Might, if anyone is going to acknowledge Saitama's strength, it's going to be All Might, because he obviously would know that Saitama is the real deal. And I would also like how people would observe Saitama, like from the public view. Like, I guess they would liken his quirk to what All Might's quirk is, because they essentially have the same abilities, super strength, super agility, everything is just amplified. And I'm not even sure what they call All Might's quirk. I mean, we, the readers, know that it's one for all, but the public, of course, doesn't. I think they literally call it All Might's quirk. Like, it just doesn't have a name. But Izuku's quirk, on the other hand, I think they labeled it superpower. But going back to the All Might Saitama dynamic, I would love it, because I really see All Might like pressuring Saitama to just be more of a hero, be more of a spokesman, be more outgoing and more helpful, rather than just taking down villains. He wants him to be more of like a mascot, the way that All Might is. And he would also probably always try to train with Saitama too, similar to how Genos is, but I think he would put up more of a fight, especially if we're talking about Prime All Might. I'm not going to get into crossover battles. I'm just going to say I think that he would be able to, I don't know, do something. I'm not going to say he could win. I'm not going to say he could be even with him. I'm not getting into that. I just think Prime All Might could do something in a training aspect. That's all I'm going to go for. But I would love to see All Might interacting with Saitama. Paxson D, Saitama versus everyone, who wins? Just kidding. Hey Shonen, how are you, man? Hope life has been well. Hope people haven't been giving you too much of a hard time about all these crossover fights. They're conversations I love having, but I see them get out of hand all the time, so I can see why you want to stick clear. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you're like in a contained environment where you have like, I don't know, 12 people that are all on the same wavelength and can have civilized conversations and not get angry about conflicting opinions and whatnot, yeah, crossover battles can be fun. But if we're talking about them on like a public stage like YouTube where thousands and thousands of people are going to chime in, it becomes really bad really quick. It's like talking about politics and religion. It's just not a good idea. I mean, I've worked in places where people have literally been fired for talking about politics in the open. People have legitimately grown to hate me and literally threaten me for having conflicting opinions of their own with crossover battles and whatnot. So that's why I'm just trying to steer clear of it. I don't have any issues with the patrons asking it before this. It's just that I forgot to clarify it on the Patreon the Q&A thread, the list of requirements and stuff. It's not that I had a problem or anything. It's just that I need to make it clear that I don't want to talk about this stuff just because there's no right answer and it's just not worth it for me personally. But if you guys don't like me because of that and you want to go listen to someone else, feel free. There's tons of other YouTubers who love talking about crossover battles, and I'm sure that they would love to have you subscribe and follow them. So think you've done this before, but Flashy Flash or Bang, who do you back? Personally, Bang wins mid-difficulty. I think his reaction speed can counter Flashy's pure speed, and if he was using Abandonment, he might be on the same level. Might be hyping Bang too much. So before Flashy Flash went against Saitama in the webcomic, I maybe would have agreed with mid-difficulty, but now I'm thinking Bang takes him high diff. Like super high diff, because Flashy Flash is more or less just as strong as any of the executives, maybe even stronger than most of them. So Bang would definitely have to go into the Abandonment to take on Flashy Flash and even have a chance to defeat him, but I do think that his reflexes could keep up with Flashy Flash. Of course, he's not going to beat him on a foot race, but Bang is pretty damn fast in his own right, because when they were comparing everyone running away from the spaceship, Boros' ship falling in Season 1, he was clearly way faster than most of the other S-Class heroes that were running, even Atomic Samurai. So Bang, I think, could hold his own against Flashy Flash, and ultimately he would overcome him with his skill and the Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist, which I think trumps Flashy Flash's ninja martial arts abilities that he has. But I even think that he can avoid having his head cut off too. But hey, maybe I'm hyping up Bang too much. You know, it's up for debate. Anyway, man, trying to be a decent patron here and keep up to date with talking to you. Hey, it's all good, man. You just not declining your patronage and just pledging every month is more than enough support. But you know, having the time to talk to me is even better. So thank you so much, Paxson. I know you're one of the OG patrons, and I appreciate it so much. Still keeping up to date, minus the My Hero manga reviews, bit behind there. Hey, that's fine. This villain's arc is almost over anyway, so once that's over, it'll probably give you more incentive to catch up, and it'll be easier to catch up, you know, before the new arc starts, if you're even interested in it by that time. Anyway, my friend, take care. I'll see you the next week. Raul M asks, yo, what's up, Big Z? I don't have a question for last week's video, so I didn't bother asking, but I have two this week. My first question is, what are your thoughts on the DCEU movies? I prefer DC over Marvel Comics and feel like they have the potential to be better movies than Marvel since they own their characters. I agree. I think that DC has very big potential to make great movies. They just don't have the talent or the minds behind it to get the job done. They're just simply backing the wrong people. That's it. Marvel has found the right team. DC hasn't. That's ultimately what it's coming down to. Like, if DC was able to find the talent that Marvel had and was able to construct this awesome group the way that Marvel Studios is, and they had the same mindset and vision that Marvel did, then I think they could compete with them and possibly even surpass them one day, but they just don't. And it's really unfortunate because DC does have great characters and great storylines that they can adapt to movies the way that Marvel has, but it's just not going to happen if they don't have the talent backing them. But as for the DCEU movies, I don't completely hate them like a lot of people do. I think a lot of them are pretty fun. Here's a super controversial opinion. I like the Justice League movie. I don't think it's a great movie. I don't think it's anywhere near Infinity War or the other collab movies like that. But I think it's fun. and it's enjoyable, and it's short, and I like it. So yeah. But other than that, like, I don't think Batman vs Superman and Man of Steel, I don't think those movies are redeemable. I genuinely dislike those movies. My second question is, have you ever heard or played Rainbow Six Siege? It's a slower paced FPS that focuses heavily on strategy and planning to win. So I don't think I've ever played a Rainbow Six game, and I'm not really too much into FPSs, but this sounds super intriguing to me, genuinely. Because, like, it sounds very different from the typical FPS where you just run around, get killed, respawn, keep going, or you just camp and shoot somebody else that's running around, or get killed by the camper. So this change of pace and actually trying to win via strategy sounds pretty interesting and something that I would be on board with. Steven asks, "Nay, haber, dude?" I probably said that wrong. Cheers to Murata for being the only battle mangaka willing to turn his men into Playgirl models. Flashy Flash are looking finer than Tatsumaki in the latest bonus chapter. Yes, that is true. Like the one panel that we get of Flashy Flash, just butt on display. So yeah, Murata is definitely one of the few, but Araki is up there, especially JoJo Part 5. My god, that's like, you know, if you've seen JoJo Part 5, at least definitely the manga, you know what I'm talking about. It's like, you know, Flashy Flash and Sonics in every chapter, but even more scantily clad. What hero ranking would you give Danny Phantom? So I've never seen Danny Phantom. I'm not really familiar with him, but I did look up his abilities on the wiki, and he is insane. Like, wow. If a hero in One Punch Man had his abilities, they would easily be at the top 3, top 2, up there with Blast and Tatsumaki. I mean, he's essentially like Obito with some of Tatsumaki's abilities and some of Blast's abilities, at least the ones that are kind of hinted at. I'm not sure what his strength, reflexes, and speed are like, but just his abilities alone would make him top 5 at the minimum. Like, he is insane. What's your favorite fictional association? The Hunter Association, the Hero Association, the Ninja Village, the Shadow Society, etc. For me, it's definitely Section 9 and Special Vehicles Section 2, Division 2, Pat Labar. Take care. So me personally, I really like the League of Villains. I think they're just so awesome, and the concept of them is just really different and amazing. Like, it's not just some blanket organization, the Faceless, that was just thrown together for the sake of being a couple powerful evil dudes that come together to be foil to the main hero faction or the protagonist faction. Like, there's a legitimate reason why they all came together. While their goal is very stereotypical, I mean, that's more so because of All For One, Shigaraki, but they all came together for a reason, and they all play their own specific individual roles, and they all support each other and have like a genuine sense of camaraderie. Especially with this recent arc in My Hero, I just love the League of Villains so much. I mean, I really liked it before that, but this arc really solidified it for me. I also like the Sensoi 7 from Yu Yu Hakusho. Similar to the League of Villains is that they all come together and they all play their own specific roles, and they all have like a genuine sense of camaraderie, at least until Sensui, you know, reveals that he doesn't give a damn about them. But still, Wolf Pup ass. All right, it's about to get real up in here. Howdy, Shonen Wolf here. So my first question is, are we going to get a backstory for S-Class hero Atomic Samurai? Where did he come from, and how did he get so strong? Is it true that one will kill off Atomic Samurai in the future? Like some of the shows where characters die, we get a backstory on them. So I'm not sure if we're going to get a backstory on Atomic Samurai anytime soon. If we do, it's likely going to happen in the arc after the Monster Association War is over, because that has a lot of room to be fleshed out from the webcomic once the manga adapts it. I just assume that Atomic Samurai kind of has like an origin to Silver Fang. You know, he was just born with crazy abilities and crazy talent, similar to the other S-Class heroes, which sets them apart from normal humans, but then he used that talent to go into a specific endeavor, such as becoming a swordsman, a samurai, and then he eventually just became the best, just like Silverfang did. But I'm not sure if he's going to die. I just speculated that if any of the heroes are going to die, it possibly could be Atomic Samurai, because he has his disciples to pick up the mantle for him. Second question is, do you have a favorite US dollar bill? If so, which one? Well, I really like the new $100 bill. You know, the Benjamin, the blue Benjamin. I think it's so cool looking. It's like kind of futuristic. Well, at least in a tangible sense. If you had to choose one U.S. president in history to be second in command, assisting Child Emperor with a strategic plan in One Punch Man War arc, who would you choose and why? either George Washington or Roosevelt, but I'm probably going to lean towards George Washington considering what he had to work with in the time that he was in. It's pretty remarkable what he was able to do and the precedent that he was able to set. So if you can like transfer him to a contemporary setting and give him more of a modern mindset, I'm sure he would be even more, outrageous in his abilities to come up with plans and whatnot. Or maybe I'm hyping up a little too much. That's just the way that I see things, at least. I like your idea about a monster picking up Flash Mike and listening that the hostage has been extracted to the surface, and a powerful monster pops from the ground and then fights the surface team to take back Waganma, and the support team are having a tough time, and right about the monster is about to kill them. He killed the heroes. Daedric Genos shows up and obliterates the monster in one go. I think that would be a good entrance for Daedric Genos to show up in the party. What do you think? I think that's awesome. That's a really good idea, actually. That totally lines up with, at least if that theory is true, that the other monsters heard what Flash was saying. And this definitely gives a good way for Genos to have a substantial win for once. Other than him which I assume is just going to go glass cannon mode with the 10 seconds that he has, and then he's pretty much useless after that. But at least before that, maybe he could take out a pretty powerful monster. Maybe Neon, because he's like the only executive that's really unaccounted for, at least for us knowing how his fate is going to turn out because he wasn't in the webcomic. So maybe he's going to lose to Daedric Genos. I certainly hope so. I want Genos to get a good win for once. What frustrates you the most? Usually things that are out of my control, not like forces of nature or whatnot, because, it can't be helped, but things that are like contrived, that are just can't be helped by me. Like if I fail on my own because of my own mistakes or whatnot, I understand. It's my fault. I'm going to just, learn from it and move on. But if it's stuff that's like, oh, there's nothing I could have done because it was just ultimately out to get me, or the odds were against me, and, no matter what I did, it was just going to happen. That's what frustrates me the most. Did I ever told you I bought a motorcycle? Well, here's what happened. It was last year, May or June, when I made the purchase, so I had to wait to the motorcycle title, and when I received it, I went to the DMV, and when I got there, they said that they couldn't accept it because there was information that needed to be filled out, so I sent the title back, and when I got it back out, this all took there needed to be filled out, so I sent it back there, and there was still information that needed to be filled out. This all took 6 months. It was freaking frustrating. The nightmare has ended this year on January, and that's when I took my baby for a ride on the highway. I'm glad that worked out for you. I'm sure that was really super frustrating. I've had to deal with stuff like that too. I don't know about you, but they charged me like every other time that they had to do something like this, and I think that's ultimately why they do it. It's just a scam to make money. I'm not sure if they did keep charging you to do this stuff, but still, it's like, I'm sure they do this on purpose just so that they can keep stringing you along. It's kind of like what the DMV is known for. Just finished the festival arc from My Hero Academia. Gentle Criminal and La Brava, awesome villains. Gentle has a sad backstory along with La Brava. What did you think of the festival arc, and what do you think the duo will have a redemption arc later in the future? Gentle and okay. So I do think that they're going to come back in the future of the story, and I think it will be good for them. They will have somewhat of a redemption, because at the end of the arc they had somewhat of a redemption. So at least I hope that the hero side, the police, choose to use them for good rather than just locking them up and wasting them, But I don't think that's what Horikoshi has in mind for them. But as for the festival arc in general, I didn't mind it as much as everyone else did. Yes, it wasn't as interesting as the other arcs, but we have to remember that Horikoshi is juggling a lot of different demographics and audiences with My Hero, and he kind of has to please all of them at least one time or another. And the festival arc was kind of just catering to that one specific audience that My Hero has. The ones that like the slice of life stuff, the ones that like the overall main characters interacting with each other and developing in a broader sense, rather than just them getting more powerful and developing their abilities. I just hope that if he chooses to do another arc like this in the future, he just makes it more interesting. But aside from that, it was fine. If Gentle and La Brava joined the Hero Association, what class rank would you put them in, and why? Arigato senpai. So I think that Gentle and La Brava, they would have to be together, because La Brava's quirk only works on people that she loves, so ultimately she would only be able to use it on Gentle. So they would have to have like a Atomic Samurai's disciple dynamic, where they would essentially always have to be together, and that probably would hinder their rank. So I guess this would put them at the bottom of the A class maybe, because if they work together, they're super powerful, definitely rivaling that of like maybe even Puri Puri Prisoner. It's debatable at this point, but they certainly excel most of the A class heroes working together. But like I said, they need each other to become super powerful, so yeah, they'd probably be at the bottom of the A class if that were to happen. So that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Once again, I want to thank all 70 of my amazing, attractive, super cool patrons. Guys, thank you so much, and I hope this Q&A is just good enough to give back for all that you have given to me. And if you would like to be in next week's Q&A, just simply check out my Patreon. The $5 tier will give you access to this video. If you liked it, please give it a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.